Welcome to the World of Eora, a news and lore podcast about Pillars of Eternity and Avowed. I'm your host, Eric, aka Gingerino. Thank you so much for joining me as we dive into the history, lore, and game mechanics for the worlds that Obsidian has created for us. Good day, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the World of Eora. I'm your host, Eric, aka Gingerino. Thanks for everyone for joining me on another episode as we dive into the history, lore, and game mechanics of Pillars of Eternity 1 and 2 and Avowed. For anyone wondering why we're putting all of that together, it's because it shares the same fantasy setting known as Eora. And the aim of this podcast is basically just to appreciate a world that we know and love through these games, help you to understand a little bit more about what's going on in the world, help you be more creative in your roleplay with the games, maybe create a new character that you can play the games through, or inspire you with tabletop role-playing games, or just because you're a geek like me and you like looking at fantasy worlds for the fun of it. Welcome to the show. If you're new here, really happy to have you here. I'll signpost you towards episode 0, which signposts you further to episodes that are a little more foundational for the world of Eora and its lore, such as how magic works, who the gods are, and who the races are, etc., etc. But this is going to be a pretty decent one to start off with as well. This is going to be kind of an experiment on my part. It's kind of something I've wanted to do for a while, but I don't think I'm going to do it justice the way I want it to, so I'm just kind of going for broke and trying it anyways. I am going to revisit one of the in-game holy texts. Specifically, this time it's going to be Berath, and I'm going to basically read it like it's a sermon and try and pull the theology out of this as if I was giving a sermon to an entire group of people. So it's kind of a weird experiment. I'm going to go for it, see how it goes. And if it doesn't work, then it doesn't work. Whatever. Sorry for this episode coming up a little late. I am currently on holidays, but it's a staycation, so I have time to actually record this. And so things are kind of thrown up in the air in terms of schedule. But I haven't forgotten about you. I'm always getting something ready to go for the next episode. So that's what we're going to be doing today. As far as news goes, not really much to talk about that comes to mind that I haven't covered already. I hope I'm not confusing things that I've talked about with other people rather than on the show, but other than Grounded 2, another Obsidian game is going to be releasing on PlayStation 5 pretty soon, as it has another major update coming in, which is a game that I have loved for a very long time, even though me and my regular gaming crew haven't really gone on there in a while, but it's just sort of that time of year for all of us. But either way, no news on that front. Obviously, still nothing regarding whether or not Avowed 2 is officially canceled or not, but it seems like there's definitely still, from what we talked about last episode, there's not seemingly going to be an Avowed 2, at least for a very long time, but at least we're getting a Fallout in the mix. But that's fine. There's more than enough of this fantasy world to talk about and speculate about and work on, and especially if I ever get into a tabletop game in Eora for a long campaign, I'll be able to use some of that on this episode here. But regardless, let's dive into today's episode.
Half the locals would arrest you for trespassing and the rest would kill you outright. I'm curious, what exactly did you find there?
A reading from the holy text of the Berathian Scripture. Behold, thou faithful, the visage of thy transformation. Fear not the journey when the portal opens. Become one with the wheel, with glad heart and cheerful countenance. For the doorway shall open for all in their time. Neither the rich nor influential, neither kings nor rulers, neither the strong nor powerful can escape its embrace. Berath will usher thee through the doorway, and thou wilt return to life, thy mortal life begun anew. There goest the cycle, there goest life, there thou goest also. Thou shalt approach the door, the inevitable shall approach thee. Do not turn back on the portal, do not turn back on new life. Walk the path and welcome change, or face the night. For he walks the road with thee, and will guide to all their destination. Thou mortal, the skull thou wilt become, thou closed off the key thou shalt turn, thou sealed the threshold thou shalt cross. This has been a reading of the Berathian Scripture. Let us look to the Scripture and pull its wisdom in all that Berath applies. For there is much she wishes to say to us through this holy text that she has given us. And we begin with that greatest of wisdom, fear not the journey when the portal opens. For our God is the deity of portals and doors and pathways to other places. And she has a visage of thy transformation. Be faithful to her theology. Become one with the wheel, that cycle of reincarnation that we all enter into, with glad heart and cheerful countenance. For it is the design of the goddess that is Berath, that we will enter into this holy reincarnation, that your life will continue in the next turning of the wheel. While there will be some apprehension of the experience of death, there is no doubt, for we do not generally carry the memory from one life to the next. We may not take the experience of death the first time and bring it into our next encounter. While that apprehension and anxiety I would imagine to be normal, we shall not fear the crossing of the portal when it opens, for that is how we lead into our transformation that she has envisioned for us. And the doorway shall open for all in their time. There is none who escapes the doorway of death forever. Eventually, the night will come for thee. It matters not if you are rich, it matters not if you are a king, it matters not if you are strong, it matters not if you are poor, it matters not if you are a peasant, and it matters not if you are weak. The portal will come for us all, whether strong or weak, high or low, and so on. Have faith that Berath will usher you into a new life. There are those who have concern that perhaps the wheel may be broken. Perhaps there might be a time when you enter into the wheel and it does not turn for you, and you do not enter into the mortal realm again. If this is to happen, it is Berath's will, and in her mercy you would not remember it. But for ages past, we have carried on. The souls have left, those of the deceased, entered into the afterlife, into the beyond, where Berath is, and we have returned for ages and generations to come, and Berath will usher thee through the doorway, and thou willst return. Your mortal life will begin anew. Therest goes the cycle, there goeth life, and thou there must goest also. This is how it is designed, and we ought to follow in that design. To follow anything else, to rebel against this very design is abhorrent, and against the very nature of the world itself. And anything that is in nature is like a cancer unto the rest. You shall not stand there and let the door come to you, but you shall approach the door, this inevitable. You shall approach thee. Walk towards the door and the portal as it comes towards you. Do not be idle in your faith, move towards it. If you truly have faith in that which Berath says is good and well, you will walk that path. And if you do not, you will face the night. For he walks the road of life and death, and will guide you and everyone to their destination. While thoughts and feelings of doubt can be expected, we shall remain vigilant and hold each other headstrong to move forward to this ultimate destination within our lifetime. And we shall uphold those things of natural cycles. There are natural cycles in the world, of course. We have heard it in many a sermon about the analogy and the parable of water that becomes steam and rises high into the sky to form the clouds that then rain down upon us again, or that freeze on the mountain tops and then melt in the springtime is to run off and go back down towards the ocean, which rise and give birth to more clouds again. Each one of these steps is a turning of the wheel, a natural cycle. It is a natural manifestation of the cycle of life and death that we must also go through. When the body dies, it rots into the ground and feeds the plants that are in the ground, which we then have sustenance for our bodies, which then returns to the ground and continues the cycle over and over again. It is like the two great snakes eating their own tail. This is the duality that Berath teaches us, that exists in all things, life and death, death and life. This duality cannot be escaped. Embrace it, and you honor Berath. See where the natural cycles exist within the world where you are, within the circles that you frequent, and embrace those cycles. And anyone who tries to rebel against them or cause them to cease, abhor those machinations. Place yourself betwixt the person and their plans to upend the cycle that is natural and good for us all. And while I understand what it means to live with this faith and how it can be difficult, I quote from another famous book in our congregation, The Many Faces of Berath. Now, who amongst us has not prayed for a cycle to hiccup? Who has not in a moment of sadness yelled at Berath to make an exception for our fallen loved ones? Berath may not rescue our loved ones, but it answers our prayers in its own divine way. Berath is the god that makes life end in death, and it is also the god that makes death end in life. It's a very good book. I highly recommend you all get it. We should have it in our library that you are free to go to after the potluck, after the congregation, but I digress. When we struggle to face our own death with dignity, we must lean on each other. It is a natural cycle, after all, for us here, us fellow kith within the world. We are social creatures. We find those like ourselves and we prop each other up. We spur each other along to do that which is good. That is a natural cycle within the world, one Berath approved most certain. And therein lies wisdom with other people within the congregation. Those who are devoted to Berath will have the utmost of wisdom in these situations. When you find yourself uncertain how to behave in the day-to-day, search for the cycles that appear in nature and mimic your life with that. Follow that great image of the turning of the wheel in all that you do. Do not hurry yourself through the wheel, for the wheel will make its way to you. Do not falter against it, do not avoid it when it comes calling for you, but do not rush yourself or anyone else into the wheel if it is not yet their time. Do not encourage such things, for as it says in the scripture, not only shall you approach the door, but the inevitable shall also approach thee. Thou mortal the skull thou wilt become, thou closed off the key shalt turn, thou sealed the threshold shalt cross. And now, some announcements. Gregory and his wife will be coming up to dedicate their child today. We're so happy that they're here. Let's have it for Gregory and the family, yes. Excellent, excellent. There will be, as mentioned previously, potluck after the service today. If everyone could apply single order, go through the doorways of Berath out of the sanctuary into the foyer, and we will have etc., etc. I'll meet you all out there for some Merc brew and other assorted goodies. Okay, now that that's done, granted that was a little weird of a way to do it, but hey, I had a little bit of fun with that. Now, as someone who has actually sat down with religious texts before and tried to extract wisdom from it, through exegesis and all this kind of thing, it was a fun little exercise. It's something I'd like to do a little bit more in future episodes, but I'm kind of looking to see feedback from those of you listening on whether or not that was something that was even interesting within the first place. But now that I've got that part down, maybe let's go talk about some of the lore that is in everything that I just said. So, I read from 2 in-game books, one called the Berathian Scripture and one called The Many Faces of Berath. I literally read Berathian Scripture from front to back, and then I just kind of pulled pieces out of the Many Faces of Berath book to kind of supplement the wisdom that would be Berathian wisdom. And I think a lot of it lies, as was kind of hinted at in the sermon, of this honoring and kind of sacred I would say attitude towards the natural cycles within the world. I didn't want it to lean too much towards druidity, but I do think that there is some sort of druid aspect that could be part of this. And that's one thing that I think is really interesting and good about the writing for the game of Pillars of Eternity is there's a versatility to it where you have this religion of Berathian people who definitely there is going to be large groups of people that are perhaps a little bit more attracted to the religion of Berath than others. like one thing that is really interesting about this is it really levels the playing field between the upper class and the lower class, the rich and the poor, the strong and the weak, et cetera, et cetera. And so you can find this leveling of the playing field, which will probably actually be very, very attractive to a lot of people that are on the lower end of these different spectrums, because it does give them this value. It inherently gives them the same value that society ascribes to value of people in higher classes or castes. And that has been attractive to people in real world religions for a very long time, when religion adds value to the majority of like the working man and woman and child, I mean, not working children. I don't know, maybe, but that's not the point. Anyways, so there is stuff like that in there as well. So I'd expect a number of those people to be part of it. But I don't necessarily think that the Church of Berath would be the most welcoming to people who suffer from a lot of fear, especially fear around death, because a lot of what's written here is about facing that with, there's some sort of courage. Like you have to death is going to come for you. It's going to come for everybody. You need to face that and actually walk toward it and not fight away from it. And I think there's a number of people that will struggle with that. And it's not that I think the scripture of this says that, we should beat these people down because they're weak-minded. But whenever you get groups of people in a church or any sort of organized group, there's going to be, it's natural human, like you can't stop this from happening. It's going to be normal for people to have like the insiders and the outsiders. And this is going to be true of every individual church, every individual congregation, of like how much they allow certain people to act in certain ways. And I can kind of foresee a large group of Berathian congregants looking at people who are afraid of death and being like, well, why are you so weak-minded? I can see that kind of thing happen. I can also see a lot of people being very, very understanding about it, which is why I included it in this little message I gave, where it was like, we recognize that people will have a hard time with it, and it even says so in the Many Faces of Berath book at the very end, and I quoted it directly, that some people have prayed for the cycle to hiccup, for death to not hit a loved one. So I think they will have some sympathy and empathy towards people on a theological basis, but in practice, I wonder if there will be some groups of people that think, oh, well, we are more brave than the rest of the Berathians in our church body, and therefore we are better than them. Like that, and that kind of thing can happen with any religion, and it does happen with religions all over the place. But I also think that there is a problem with the Berathian church in that I don't know how much, and like obviously we only have these couple of texts to go off of, but I don't know how much the Berathian faith really informs your day-to-day decisions. And that was one thing I struggled with when I was reading through this, of like, how does someone who is, let's say, in a weird moral dilemma, or trying to make a business decision, or trying to like make a huge decision for them and their family and their life, how does this faith in Berath inform those decisions that you make? Now, granted, I am coming at this from monotheistic point of view. Like, I live in a culture and I have experienced religion from a very monotheistic point of view. And from what I understand of talking with people who have a little bit more knowledge and possibly experience in polytheism, there is a degree that you're it's not mutually exclusive which God you kind of are with. In polytheistic religions or cultures, which would kind of match what we're looking at here in this world, you would maybe mainly be dedicated to one God, but you would also pray to other deities for certain things, right? So perhaps I'm sitting here saying that, well, Berathian scripture and theology and doctrine does seem to inform very well about how to make decisions in life. Perhaps that's because some of those decisions should be prayed to other gods for. Like if you're trying to make a decision on a moral dilemma in regards to your work ethic, then that's maybe something you're supposed to be praying to Abaddon about, and not so much Berath. Berath has her domain that she is personified by, and praying to her about those things, may or may not be inappropriate. I don't want to say it would be inappropriate in this world, but it might just be not a well-placed prayer in the reality and the metaphysics of Eora. But I still, I can't help where I come from, having experienced a monotheistic point of view, where I like to see how much I can stuff into this one particular microcosm of faith in this world, how much life can you really get out of the Berathian scripture the way it is written? And I don't see a lot of people being able to make minute decisions based off of Berathian scripture. I did try to include this thing where there's natural cycles within the world that you can see, like the water cycle being the easiest one, but then there's also life and death. I was also going to include one about sex, about, how like the man bursts forth from the woman, and then something about, going back to the woman and all that kind of thing. But I'll let you figure that out. You guys I don't need to make that a sermon thing. But anyways, so like I try to include that where it's like, okay, if you were in a moral dilemma or you're in a situation, like which one aligns most with the cycles that you see in life? Which one has that same vibe and flavor and taste to it, if you will? But that's important, right? Like I know a lot of people who might be listening to this, your experience with religion might be very cut and dry rules. This is what you do. This is what you don't do. But as someone who has, I think, experienced a wide variety of one particular religion, I think it's important to validate that there are different ways to experience things. Like there are the cut and dry, here are the rules, don't cross this line. But then there's also, feeling the vibes of a faith. Like in the Christian faith that I've experienced, for example, a lot of people will call it following the capital S spirit, where it's not so much, this is the thing I discreetly have been told that I have to do, and here's the steps I have to take. It's very much like I am following the vibes and the flavor of what the faith is and letting that kind of guide me. And that is almost like having a dowsing rod or a compass. It like points you in a direction, but it doesn't give you the exact path. And I think that you can kind of have that with Berathian scripture, where you have these cycles, if you will, and you can look to them as analogies and see if you can see your own situation in the analogy and let that help guide your decision making, even though it doesn't tell you directly that this is what you should do in this situation. And that's a lot of religious texts, right? Like they can't, especially if they're written in the past, they simply just can't, tell you what to do in every possible situation. They need to pass on wisdom to you that you can then apply to each situation so you know what to do from there. And I do think the Berathian scripture is a bit lacking in that regard, but like I said, you can't hit all the posts in that particular way. And that just might be where people struggle. And so I could see a lot of very heady people coming to the Berathian scriptures because they focus a lot on this thing that no one remembers, right? You have some religions that will focus on a particular event in the past, and it's grounded in that kind of like a real event or a real idea or something you can touch, taste, or smell, or blah, blah, blah. But then you have a lot of things in different religions, such as like this one, which is dealing with a concept more than anything. It's like, you're going to die, which is a very real thing, but no one remembers in this world what it's like to die over and over again. And so it's this very like detached thing from who you are as a human being, or a kith person, I guess. And as a result, you have this real heady kind of religion as a result. Now, this is, again, only 2 books within the world. There is arguably going to be a lot of other pieces of scripture or holy texts or very influential pieces of literature within these religions and churches that gets passed around, much like, things do in religions in the real world, where you have your holy scriptures, but then you have these like myriad of books that all of these authors have written within the confines of that religion to explain parts of their religion or help people walk those paths, etc., etc. And so, yeah, that's kind of where I'm at with that. Fun episode to do on my end. I would really like some feedback from you, the listener, on whether or not this is interesting for you and whether or not you would want more of it, perhaps in a deeper way, or maybe less of it, like less of a full episode of it and just kind of an aside or just like a bonus thing at the end of an episode. I don't know. Feedback on that would be really appreciated. So I did this one very small, very quickly. And again, sorry this is out a little bit later. This is just the scheduling because of vacation times, kind of doing it between stuff. But anyways, let's close out the episode, shall we?
If you find your trail has run cold, come to me with whatever you have. There is much I may be able to do for you.
If you liked today's episode, then send me an email, worldofeora@gmail.com. If you didn't like today's episode, send me an email, worldofeora@gmail.com. If you did or didn't like today's episode, but you just want to chat about nerd stuff, whether it's about Pillars of Eternity or otherwise, send me an email, worldofeora@gmail.com. I love having conversations with people, and there's a number of you out there I've gotten to know as a result from that. If you've enjoyed this show, whether it's just for a little while or a long time, and you thought to yourself, I'd like to support the show, whether it's multiple times or even just once, you can do so at ko-fi.com/worldofeora. Whether you do, again, one-time donation or you want to make it a regular thing because this is something that you get value out of from your day and your commute while you're doing dishes or falling asleep, which I happen to know some of you are doing, then by all means, feel free to support the show. I do want to leave a disclaimer that I do not expect that from people. This is something I have been doing for free from the outset, and as far as I'm going to decide, I'm going to continue to do it for free if that's what people want. And it's just kind of an option there for people who find value in being supportive of the things they enjoy. If you do want to support the show, but you're not interested in doing so financially, then I would ask that you engage in the platform that you are on. And this is actually something I would say is my personal values anyway align more with something like this. But that being said, those of you who are financially supporting the show, I really do appreciate it. This show has continued to exist sometimes because of that financial thing. Not because, I'm making money, but because it's like, it's worth this much to people. So I'm going to keep doing it because it's worth them to people. And I've always come around and loved making every episode after anyways. But again, if you don't want to do so, just engage with the platform you're on. And that's also really great, because it helps other people find the show. So leave a rating, leave a review, post a comment. If there's a poll, answer a poll, whatever it is, share it with other people. That kind of thing helps other people find it, which can promote more engagement, and that helps the show even more. So anything you guys can do for that, I appreciate. Thank you very much for listening. As for what I have been playing, as I am a gamer, I have surprisingly not been playing a lot. I have really, really just kind of dove into my tabletop role-playing games, one of which is a 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons levels 1 through 20 campaign that we are only now at level 2, so it's going to take a while. And then the other one is a open sandbox Fallout campaign set in the city that me and my friends live in, and we're in the early levels for sure, but there's a lot more of the map to explore and things for them to discover before we start to even get close to wrapping it up. So I'm going to be playing these 2 games for a long time. I was hoping to play an Eora-based game sometime soon in any system, or try one of the many, many smaller moduled OSR games that I've purchased, but it doesn't look like it's going to happen anytime soon. So either I'm going to have to find a third table, which I don't think I'm going to do because then I wouldn't see my wife and child as much as I already don't see them, or I'll have to figure something else out. I have tried the game, it came out on Game Pass, Dench Attack, and I really like that. Like, that game is solid. It's fun gameplay. It's really great music. It's something that I know if I was a kid, I would have played it over and over and over and over again just because it is fun. Like, that's all it is. It's just a fun game. So that's something on Game Pass that I've been really into. I tried the Halo remake, which just a wave of nostalgia. And so far, only like 2 missions into the game, a really faithful remake, I'll say. Like, I haven't gone through it enough and really looked at all the details, but, just remembering it from my childhood, like even the voice acting, I swear they just pulled the voice files from the original game and put them in this new one. But either way, it was nice to kind of revisit something from my youth. I only wish I had my friends from my childhood at home on the couch with me so we could play split screen co-op legendary mode and get absolutely wrecked by enemies for hours on end. Because we were not very good at that game. But yeah, that was fun. And other than that, there hasn't really been much that I've been playing. My wife and I watched the movie Exit 8, which is based off a video game, so that's kind of related. Very good, honestly, for a game that doesn't really have a story in it at all. They pulled a story out of there, and they made the characters compelling. They made the whole setting much more compelling than I thought it could be. I really enjoyed it. Granted, most of you know me by now. I'm pretty much a shill for anything that's remotely okay. So I have a low bar for most things. But I don't know. I found I really enjoyed it. My wife also really enjoyed it, and she's not much of a gamer. So the movie, I think, really held up. For those who don't know, Exit 8 is a video game where you're caught in this kind of loop, and you need to notice anomalies to escape the loop. But you have to do it enough times in a row to escape this weird loop that you're stuck in. And so this guy finds himself in this like recurring loop, and he runs into weird things that are happening, and shenanigans occur. I can't say anything because it'll spoil part of the narrative. Really cool movie. And if you want to support movies that are, good indie adaptations of video games, I don't know if it's indie, actually, I shouldn't say that. If you just want to support movies that are good adaptations of video games, then by all means, rent it, check it out, spread the word. That's been me. Thanks, everybody. Let me know what you've been playing or watching or engaging with. worldofeora@gmail.com. But that's everything for now. Thanks, everyone, for listening. I'm your host, Eric, aka Gingerino, and I'll see you guys next time.